I worked as a trauma therapist for 38 years. 38 years sitting with people who had been genuinely, seriously wronged. Not by minor slights or small disappointments, by people who had broken trust in the deepest possible ways, by losses caused by the deliberate or careless actions of others, by wounds that deserved every ounce of the anger and grief they carried. And in 38 years of sitting with those people, the single most consistent and the single most liberating discovery I ever watched anyone make was this: forgiveness is not a gift you give the person who wronged you. Forgiveness is a prison you free yourself from. I am 90 years old, and I want to make sure you understand what I mean by this, because it is the thing most frequently misunderstood about forgiveness. And the misunderstanding is, in my professional experience, the single most common reason people refuse to forgive, even when the refusal is eating them alive. Most people hear the word forgiveness and understand it to mean what that person did was acceptable, or I have decided that what happened was not as serious as I felt it was, or, most damaging of all, I am releasing this person from the consequences of their actions. That is not what forgiveness is. That is absolution. Forgiveness and absolution are completely different things, and the confusion between them is what keeps most people in the prison. What that person did may have been genuinely, seriously, unforgivably wrong. The injury may have been real and lasting. The trust may have been broken in ways that can never be fully repaired. The consequence they deserved may not have arrived. All of that can be completely true. Forgiveness is not a statement about any of that. Forgiveness is a statement about where you are choosing to live. Are you choosing to continue living in the room where the wrong happened, in the permanent moment of the injury, rehearsing it, maintaining it, building a wall around it to protect it? Or are you choosing to walk out of that room, fully in possession of the knowledge of what happened and who did it, and go on to live the rest of your life somewhere other than inside that specific wound? The person who wronged you does not need your forgiveness to sleep at night. They are, in most cases, not lying awake in the awareness of your anger. They are living their life. The resentment, the keeping of the score, the rehearsal of the injury, the energy spent maintaining the wound, all of that is being carried daily by you, not by them. By you. You are in a prison built from a wrong someone else committed, and you are guarding it from the inside. Let me tell you about Celia. Celia came to me in her mid-40s, referred by her physician who had treated the physical symptoms of something that was not, at its root, a physical problem. She was a highly intelligent, deeply capable woman who was, by the time I met her, running on approximately half of her available life force. The other half was being spent on something she had been carrying for 27 years. When Celia was 18 years old, her older brother had done something to her that I will not describe in detail, because the details do not belong in this conversation. What I can tell you is that it was a serious betrayal of trust, that it cost Celia things she had not deserved to lose, and that her family, in the particular way that families sometimes protect themselves from the truth of what one of their members has done, had required Celia to be quiet about it in order to preserve the family's surface of normality. She had been quiet about it for 27 years, and for 27 years she had carried the original injury alongside the additional injury of having been required to carry it silently. She had been required to sit at Christmas dinner with the man who had wronged her and to pass him the salt, to attend family events at which his presence was treated as normal, and her injury was treated as a private matter she had agreed to manage, to live effectively in a family structure that had decided her wound was less important than its own comfort. The anger she had arrived with was completely, genuinely, entirely justified. I want to be clear about that. Every ounce of it was appropriate to what had been done, and to the 27 years of silence that had been required of her afterward. And it was also, by the time she came to me, a weight that was costing her everything. It was in her body, and the specific way that carried resentment lives in the body. The chronic tension, the disrupted sleep, the particular exhaustion of a person who is spending energy they cannot afford on the maintenance of a wound they have been guarding for 27 years. It was in her relationships, in the walls she had built to protect herself that also, inevitably, kept out the people who genuinely wanted in. It was in her life choices, in the paths not taken because the wound had narrowed the aperture of what felt possible. 27 years of justified anger, doing to Celia what the original wrong had done, not because the anger was wrong to feel, because it had been allowed to become the room she lived in. I did not work with Celia on whether her anger was justified. It was. I worked with her on a different question. I asked, is the person carrying this anger the person you want to spend the rest of your life being? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said no. And then she said, but I don't know how to put it down without it feeling like I'm saying what he did was acceptable. That was the misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding is, in my experience, the lock on the door of the prison. The belief that forgiveness requires you to say the wrong was acceptable. It does not. What happened was not acceptable. What happened will never be acceptable. The forgiveness is not a statement about him. The forgiveness is a statement about where you are choosing to live from this moment forward. We worked together for 2 years. The forgiveness Celia eventually arrived at was not warm or reconciling or free from grief. It was simply a decision, clear, deliberate, made in full possession of the facts, to stop spending her life maintaining a wound that her brother had never spent a day maintaining himself, to stop being imprisoned in a room he had created and that she had been guarding alone ever since. She told me, near the end of our work, that the moment she felt the shift was not dramatic. It was quiet. She said, it was like I had been holding a door shut against something for 27 years and I just stopped. And nothing terrible came through the door. It just opened, and I walked out. She walked out into the rest of her life, which was, as it turned out, considerably larger than the prison she had been living in. 3 things, from 90 years of living and 38 years as a trauma therapist. First, forgiveness is not absolution. You do not need to decide that what was done to you was acceptable. You do not need to pretend the injury was smaller than it was. You do not need to reconcile with the person who wronged you, or restore the relationship, or act as if the trust that was broken has been repaired. You do not even need to tell them that you have forgiven them. In many cases, telling them is not possible and not advisable. Forgiveness is entirely internal. It is a decision you make privately, in the full knowledge of what happened, to stop spending your life maintaining the wound, to stop living in the moment of the injury, to let the anger and the resentment complete their purpose, which was to signal to you that something real and important had been violated, and to set them down when they have finished doing that work. The violation was real. The forgiveness does not undo it. The forgiveness simply releases you from the obligation of living in it forever. Second, the resentment is living in you, not in them. This is the thing I most want you to understand. From 38 years of watching people carry anger that was making them ill, while the person they were angry at was living completely undisturbed by it. The resentment you are carrying is not punishing the person who wronged you. It is not in them. It is in you, in your body, in your relationships, in your choices, in the specific narrowing of your life that comes from maintaining a wound over years and decades. Every day you spend in the anger is a day spent in a cost that you are paying, not them. Every night the resentment wakes you at 3 a.m. is a night you gave to a person who is sleeping perfectly well. You are paying a price for an injury you did not cause. That is not justice. That is the injury continuing through you by your own maintenance of it. The anger was appropriate. The resentment served its purpose. But at some point, and you know the point, you have felt it. The point where the carrying began to cost more than the wrong itself. It became a choice, and it remains a choice every day. Third, you deserve to put it down. Not because the person deserves your forgiveness. They may not. Not because what happened was acceptable. It was not. Not because forgiveness will erase the wound. It will not. You deserve to put it down because you deserve a life that is not organized around someone else's worst moment. You deserve to live in a present that is not permanently occupied by a past that has already happened. You deserve the energy and the attention and the aliveness that is currently being consumed by the maintenance of an injury you did not choose. You did not choose the wrong. You did not choose the wound. But you are choosing day by day whether to continue living in it. And you deserve to choose differently. Celia is in her late 60s now. She is one of the most fully alive people I know. Not because she has forgotten what was done to her. She has not. Not because the wound is healed in any simple sense. It is not entirely. But because she chose, in full knowledge of everything, to stop living in a prison that someone else built, and that she had been guarding alone for 27 years. She walked out into a life that was always waiting for her. That life is waiting for you too. I am 90 years old, and I have watched enough people stay in the prison, and enough people walk out of it, to tell you with complete certainty, the life outside it is always larger than what you can see from inside. Put it down. Not for them, for you. You deserve to live outside the room where it happened.